Welcome back to Restos. I'm Jordan and I've bought yet another project. So, this is untouched territory for me. Can't say I've ever wanted to buy something along these lines. Never planned to, but you know what Facebook Marketplace is like. It happens. So, this is a 4-cylinder air-cooled engine. Now, you might be taking a guess what I bought. A Beetle, a camper. Well, you've guessed it right. I've bought a 1960s, as far as I can work out, 25 kVA three-phase generator, powered by a Volkswagen 1.6 industrial air-cooled engine. Now, I was in the market for a generator-ish, because I'm still trying to work out some kind of sandblasting setup, and I'm limited on power in here. And this thing popped up, and I thought, no, it's petrol, air-cooled. And I kept thinking, racking my mind on it, and eventually thought, I'm going to go take a look. Why not? And, well, as any kind of guy that goes and looks at projects knows, you don't take a look, you just go and purchase it, even if you want it or you don't want it. But so far, unlike a lot of projects where you tend to buy them and they seem to get worse the further you look into them, this thing so far keeps getting better. So what have we got here then? We've got a massive, well, he's rated there at 28 kVA. It was advertised at 25 for some reason, but could be because of the 0.8 power factor. I don't know, either way. So we've got a generator here from Denmark. No date code, annoyingly. Designed to run at 3000 RPM, yeah, 28 kVA, 3 phase, 50 Hz, and 0.8 power factor, 40 amps per phase. And it's the duty cycle on that's continuous, which is pretty good. Now this is a proper old generator. None of that modern tin stuff. This thing is absolutely solid. And as a result, this thing weighs around half a ton. Hence why it's on one of my pallet dollies, which is collapsing under the weight. Now you might think, okay, air-cooled engine, that's a really odd combination for a generator. You know, most generators are diesel, even going back years, you know, they'll list the powered diesels and such. No, this is definitely a factory item. This isn't just bodged together, this is all properly built. It's designed this way, it's meant to be here. It's pretty cool to start a motor being on the side like that. Must be using, like, you know, beveled gears to mesh it in. And then I was looking at the engine and what that was. Looked at the engine code, and it's got a 126 engine code. A 126 is a 1.6 like second or third generation VW industrial engine, which is really cool. Now I don't know anything more about it yet, although to be fair, the code here is 050469. I wonder what that means. It's 1969. Don't know, I need to search it. Yep. The auxiliary belt, he's a bit worn, but genuine VW belt. No idea how old that is, but it's genuine. This part, really old Bosch coil. I reckon that's also original. The old Bosch Dizzy. This thing is extremely good condition. It's obviously never really been stored inside. If that is 1969, then that makes this thing, what's that, 34 years old? 34? No, what an idiot. Let me just do my quick maths a minute. 54 years old. Wow. So for this kind of condition, bit of surface rust in that and paint flaking off. But yeah, and that would kind of make ish sense because this fuse board here attached to this three-phase board is a Crabtree C50 board, which I think are around sort of 60 years old. So that would also add up. Known by electricians as the Widowmaker board. So this thing's pretty cool. Really tidy. Battery charging light and a oil pressure light. Yeah. And then also, starts up. Oh, on the key. Really impressive. Engine sounds sweet as a nut. It's very loud, and that's because obviously it's running at 3000 RPM. And the exhaust goes to there in a minute. But yeah, like no odd noises. Really sweet. Fire straight up. Especially because considering it looks rather untouched in its ages. And I was this quite surprised when I turned up there, and I saw this genuine VW Governor. So I didn't realise that VW done like an industrial range of these engines, but it's really cool, really cool. So I'll see that. Oh, what's that? I've not got a clue. A little breather hole? Or no, oil port must be, probably for the inside of Governor. That's so cool. I'm assuming an adjuster down underneath there. Yeah, oil doesn't look very, looks a bit milky, to be honest. That needs addressing. So what are my plans with this? Well, one, I want to tidy it up. How far do I tidy it up? Well, that's going to be dependent on how useful it's going to be. So, what I really want to run is a 11 kilowatt 3-phase screw compressor. Now, ideally, sort of the minimum size generator you need for that would be about 30 kVA. So this thing might still be a bit too small for that, although it's not got much electrics to it and it is old school. Now, the alternator is more than capable of running that. The problem comes with startup current. Now, a motor can take 4 or 5 times the startup current over the running current. So it's quite a lot of startup current. Now, the only thing that dictates whether this will work or not is if, one, the generator can't trip out. Well, to be fair, there's not much actually to trip out on that, so I think that shouldn't be an issue. The issue being is with that load suddenly appearing on the generator, can the engine maintain the revs? Can the governor kick in fast enough and keep it going? If it can, it might work. If it can't, no. And then I can try things like, well, there's different ways of trying it, but that's 11 kVA with what's called a star delta starter. Without a star delta starter, there's probably no chance of it doing it. And that's not ideal, especially when an 11 kVA generator. Compressor is like a, what's that, like 70 amps across the phases, something like that I think. So I guess there are a few things I want to do. Firstly, give this thing a quick tidy up minute, a gentle restoration but nothing too keen, just to tidy it up. And if it's going to be suitable for use, then long-term plans is going to be obviously to sandblast all this back, clean it right up, give it a good old paint up. Engine needs a service obviously no matter what, because I don't know what's what with that. And then it will be a case of build, rip all this out and build like a new power distribution box that is going to be give me more options for power going out, balance in the phases, and powering a big 11 kilowatt compressor. So I'm going to give us a quick tidy up minute, and then I think we're going to jump on, we're going to check the voltages, and we're going to give it a load test at least on single phase by trying to fire up my 4 kilowatt compressor on this thing and seeing how it copes. That's going to give us a good indication as to what's going to be happening in the future with this thing. So, just giving it a quick tidy up, nothing too crazy, I'll show you afterwards. And I thought I'd chuck a bit of Lidl special VHT paint on the exhaust. Why not? I don't expect it to last, obviously, but just to remove some of the surface corrosion visible. I've just more experiment. But anyway, so what I've done now is I've hooked my multimeter up. Going to put it onto AC volts. Well, I'll just put it onto L1. Chucked in a 2 kilowatt heat gun. And my grinder. This grinder's a powerful one compared to a lot of small ones. Yeah, it's 1000 watts. So probably start up current of about 2 kilowatts again. 2 kilowatt heat gun. We'll see what happens when we do that. I've hooked up the timing light because it's got 4-cylinder RPM on it, so I want to see if it works. Because ideally, obviously, the governor should be holding the engine at 3000 RPM. That's what the alternator is expecting. So we'll see what it's running at. Check the voltages, try put some load on it, and to see how it reacts before we then try to put the big load on it. Let's give it a go. It's going to get noisy. Alright, so paint's burning off nicely. Great. Voltage-wise, there's a rheostat behind the fuse board here, which allows me to adjust the current on the, like, I forgot what you call them now. Like charging windings. Electronics in there anyway. So I was able to alternate between about 230 to 250 volts, which is nice. I dropped it back down a bit. We're holding a steady sort of 230 to 240 volts. It was fluctuating a bit, but it was there. When we put on the loads, basically nothing. Yeah. So 300 kilowatts of load, didn't even flinch at that. That's a good sign. Now, what happens when we try to put a 4 kilowatt compressor on there? That's a big test. Let's have some fun and games, I guess. So what have we got here now then? Compressor's hooked up on a 32 amp socket, roughly. We've got in here the def fan, which I don't think is a big load. I'm sure it's only like a, it might only be a 1/4 kilowatt motor, something like that. I think it's, can't remember now. It's not huge anyway, but it's a motor at least. That's a good sign. I think it's like an 800 watt tube, the last one remaining on the. All my inventions are dangerous, okay? Ignore them. So 800 watt tube on that. Obviously got the grinder, 2 kilowatt heat gun. I might just connect up the battery charger in a minute as well, and something else on that. And we're going to try and do a load test. Again, this is still probably half a test of what we need for a 11 kilowatt thingy-majiggy. But still, it's a load test anyway, so we can see what happens. So, let's give it a go, see what explodes. So, sorry about the noise. So, first test is going to be compressor. We'll switch on the load, see what it's like, and then we'll try and maybe do a load test straight from main switch, all on as much as possible at once. Let's give it a go and see what happens, I guess. Okay. Right. Well, as that stands, I'm pretty impressed. I'm very impressed. So this thing didn't care one bit about the battery charger kicking in, the 4 kilowatt compressor kicking in, the motors behind, the 2 heating loads. So what's that? That's 3... I'll add this up a second. Ish. Okay, so rapidly switching on and off about 6.5 kilowatts of inductive loads plus about 2.8 kilowatts of resistive loads. Didn't phase it one bit. The governor worked spot on. Now the voltages obviously under higher loads did change there. So I'd have to make sure I configure the rheostat to sit at a suitable safe level. Ideally try and maintain about 240 volts to be most efficient. Although anywhere, to be fair, from 230 or 220 to 250 isn't really an issue. Okay, but obviously higher voltage, less current, to an extent. Depends what kind of load's on it. Yeah. So, here begs the question. Do I now try and add a probably 1980s to 1990s 11 kilowatt 3-phase compressor, so for about 15 horsepower, to this and see if it works? I think, judging by how easily it took that, I might risk it. Problem is, if it doesn't work out, I haven't really got a massive use for that other than a backup generator for the power cut we get once every 3 years. And I wouldn't have any way of running an 11 kilowatt compressor either. But then again, I've also got a random sandblasting pot and stuff turning up on Monday, which I have no idea what it is yet. I just sort of got it cheap and then had it palleted in. So I might just be spending money here for sake of it all the time. Yeah, so I'm certainly impressed with this thing so far. So I might strike up a deal with it, I think. It gets a nice rebuild and all cleaning up, painting up, all made lovely, if it will power a 11 kilowatt 3-phase compressor. If it does, I'll be over the moon. It's now proven itself with about 10 kilowatt of loading that. It will quite happily run the workshop and the farm and all that if needed, which is good. I have no idea how much fuel it's going to drink. That tank's only about 15 litres. It's not much. So at some point I think I'm going to fill the tank up and try and basically run it on a load for a long period and just see on maybe a 5 kilowatt constant load, just see how long the fuel lasts and how the engine does. Now I have absolutely no experience with air-cooled engines whatsoever. This is literally the first time I've ever really looked at one. Never thought I'd own one. So I think it's pretty cool, and I like how good condition and how original this one is. It seems exceptionally, well, I can only assume off this very low hours. It doesn't seem like it's a high mileage, if it's all too original to be high mileage. High mileage? There's no miles to it. Very few miles. Talking of miles though, I best get some big casters for this, because this thing is so difficult to move around. So definitely got to be half a ton. That alternator by itself, just the casing, must weigh something stupid, being how it's solid. Let alone all the internals and the copper and the steel and all that in there, and then the engine's going to be the lightest part of this thing. So I'm going to have to buy a compressor, try it. At minimum, I want a rev gauge on it, just because it seems to hold its revs beautifully. I'm well happy with that. But I want to put a gauge in there just to, it's like a diagnosis, this future fault finding thing. It's no harm putting a little tacho down here or something, is there for that? On the generator side of things, I want a voltage gauge, phase to neutral and phase to phase. Just because obviously we have some adjustment back here on this rheostat, and I might need to adjust it load dependent, and I'd like to see actually what, there's no point having to adjust if you can't see what it does. So we'll do that, and obviously if it does power the compressor, it will need a 32 amp 3-phase socket on as well. So at the minute we've got a 16 amp three phase, which is powered off of this old 60 amp breaker. We got a 32 amp single phase, and we've got these random sockets. It needs rewiring really, and at least just simplifying a bit. And it also could do with a 16 amp, or just I could use an adapter there. Maybe chuck on a 16 amp single phase as well. So I could do a 16 amp single phase 3 pin and a 32 amp 3 phase would be nice. And if it does do the compressor, I think I should strip it down. Service it. I won't strip the engine down, just strip off all these shields and that. Give the engine a good service and a good check over. Just check the plugs, or check they plug. It looks like it's running really well, too well, considering the potential age of this thing and the fact it's not done much. But I'm not knocking it. So at some point someone serviced it because they've marked up the HT leads and cylinders, and the plugs didn't look super old in there, but it's still got more potentially its original dizzy cap. You know, that's old, that is really old. I'm sure that dizzy cap might be the original one for that dizzy, in which case it's 50 years old. If anyone, see, I don't know what this is as well here. We got, obviously, the exhaust at the bottom side there. I'm assuming is it one exhaust per, surely these are per cylinder. And that then is like a, oh, is there a crossover? No, that's the intake. Ah, hold on a minute. Yeah, what's going on here? So is that the, yeah, boxer engine. So that's the intake up here through to a carb. That seems really, just really agricultural, that is. In which case then, what do these two link pipes to exhaust do? Does that literally just warm up the intake? I'm going to have to Google and see how these engines work. Because this here is obviously through to the exhaust manifold. There's obviously like no EGRs in old day stuff, what's I'm aware. And then there's an extra link pipe here, it goes. I'm going to have to Google and see what this stuff is. I've not got a clue. Oh yeah, and sorry, that's surely got to be our each cylinder exhaust, I guess. See how much I know about these engines? Not much at all. But it seems to run so well. So well. And this here. Let's check what that is. It goes to the coil, so obviously grounded through the carb. Goes to the coil there. There shouldn't be any sensors in that, so a carb preheater maybe? Possibly. So fuel pumps here, and I think it's got some kind of gauze or something for the inlet on that. There's no physical filter on the tank other than there is like a little sock on the pickup. I'm not sure you guys will be able to see it in here. Not sure you can see. But the tank is rusty at the bottom. Not insanely, but it certainly needs a clean out. Yeah, it's definitely corroded now, but I don't think it's going to cause any issues. It just needs a clean out, and it'll be good. You know, it's years old. No, I really like this thing. You know, no matter what, I can't see myself getting rid of it at all unless a really cheap diesel one at higher power pops up. But this is just so cool. It's a shame it's obviously so noisy, but that's because you've got an engine sitting here at 3000 RPM. So the exhaust note is actually the quiet part of it. It's the engine itself is noisy. But still, I think it's just a cool thing to own. It's really rare. I saw it on Marketplace and I was like, what on earth? I suddenly, as soon as I heard about air-cooled engine generator, I thought that's some DIY thing. And no, it's factory built. No idea who built it, where they built it. But it's unbelievably cool. And I can't find any other examples of this kind of stuff on Google. Really weird. So there probably isn't many of these about still. I guess obviously all massively, you know, no one's using these, no commercial things using these, not anymore. Not with much far superior diesel generators these days. So, I'm going to stop rambling on. If any of you guys have any kind of information that might help me on what, where, when, why, this thing, I love it. If any of you guys know a bit more on the air-cooled engines, I'm going to have to do some research and actually start to learn about them because, as I say, I've got a lot more knowledge on like that Mercedes V8 or the 4.4 TD V8 in Aero as opposed to anything to do with that. But I do love old school. And yeah, I think there might be a few more videos on this project. Let's see what we can do with it, and how it might help rectify things like that. Land Rover problems. Oh, more Land Rover problems. Everywhere. So let's see if once again a Volkswagen can save a day for me, because my daily driver is a Mark II Golf, and it might be a Volkswagen generator that fixes my Land Rover. I've been Jordan. If you want to see more on this, or any more on my other projects, or however many there is of them, then why not subscribe if you're not already. Like the video if you actually like it. If you don't like it, then, well, I guess we won't see each other again. And subscribe for plenty more. I've been Jordan. Cheers.